So we're going to talk about two types of pregnancies that don't get enough attention, but that women really need to know about, and that unfortunately I learned about during my journey. So one of them is called the chemical pregnancy. So chemical pregnancy is when you produce an embryo. So the sperm and the egg come together, they produce an embryo, but that embryo doesn't implant in your uterus, and after a couple days, your body gets rid of it, right? Why it's called a chemical pregnancy is because the embryo existed, your body naturally starts producing the pregnancy hormone, which then is why you can get a positive pregnancy test. Now, if you are not trying to get pregnant, you probably have never heard of this and you wouldn't know. You would have no idea that you had a chemical pregnancy. And in fact, it's super common and a lot of women have them. They just don't realize that they do. Because what it looks like is that maybe your period came a couple days late, but then it's a pretty normal period once you get it. If you're trying, you're taking at-home tests. And a lot of the at-home tests really like to point out that they can detect a pregnancy up to 5 days before your missed period. Well, when you are testing that early, you would definitely catch a chemical pregnancy as a positive pregnancy test when it's that early. The problem is that in a couple days, you'll spot and you'll get your period. And it was just a chemical pregnancy. It was not a viable, there's nothing that you could have done. It's not your fault. It's super common. It's just your body's way of filtering what eggs are going to continue, what embryos are going to continue, and which ones won't. So that's the danger of testing too early, especially 5 days before. But when I had mine, I tested the day after my initial first missed period, and then 3 days later, I got my period. So keep that in mind if you are testing early, if you are trying to get pregnant. Just keep testing before you get too excited, because like I said, they're very common, and you'll find out in a couple of days if it's moving past the chemical pregnancy stage. So that's chemical pregnancy. It's not fun, but at least you find out pretty quickly that it's not correct. The second one is ectopic pregnancy. Now, I thankfully did not have this happen to me, but I looked into it because after the chemical pregnancy, I was kind of freaking out when I got the second time around, I got a positive pregnancy test. I was like looking at all of the things it could be that's not a viable pregnancy, just because I don't know why I got into like a Google rabbit hole, which is not a great idea when you're pregnant. But an ectopic pregnancy, which has also been in the news lately for a couple different reasons, but first of all, is not a viable pregnancy. An ectopic pregnancy will never result in a baby, ever. Basically, what it means is you have an embryo and that embryo implants. So it went a little further than the chemical pregnancy. But the problem is that it implants in the wrong place. So it implants in somewhere, and there's different options. I'm not a doctor. Go Google it if you want to find out exactly where. But it implants in a place in which it cannot develop, and it won't happen. They actually can be pretty dangerous, where like a chemical pregnancy just kind of gets rid of itself on its own and it's totally safe. An ectopic pregnancy is something that can kill the mother. It can kill the woman if it's not removed soon enough. So it's something that's definitely is something to keep in mind. How you might find out that you have an ectopic pregnancy is obviously either one, if you go to the doctor, but when you get pregnant, when you get a positive test, most doctors won't actually even see you until like your eighth week when they calculate it, because a lot of pregnancies unfortunately end in miscarriage prior to that, or they're just not viable. So you may not have a chance to see a doctor right away when you get that positive test and you're like so excited. You still have to wait an excruciating amount of time. But other ways you might find out is you might be getting a lot of pain you might experience quite a bit of pain in your pelvis, especially on one side. So if you got a positive pregnancy test in general, and a good rule of thumb is if you are experiencing any pain in your pelvis, then call the doctor. No matter what it is. I started experiencing pain and I found out it was just stomach pain from really bad constipation, but I was still calling my doctor because pain when you're pregnant is scary. So don't ignore it. If you got a positive test and you're experiencing any pain, call your doctor. It may be an ectopic pregnancy or it could just be constipation. So I hope that that was maybe something you didn't know. Maybe it's helpful for you in your pregnancy journey. And if you have one of these or both of them, don't worry, keep trying. It's not the end. They're more common than we like to think that they are. They're just things that we don't talk about much. So I hope that was helpful. Thanks.